Are you ready? Check your reality.
The comments and opinions of this program may be considered offensive. Viewer discretion is advised. Uncommon Sense is now available for your listening convenience on Anchor.fm. Anchor allows our podcast to be available on more platforms. Click a link in the description below to connect to your favorite listening app and stream Uncommon Sense today. Thank you for your listening and supporting our show. If you haven't already, hit subscribe and lay a smackdown on that notification bell to get notified anytime we post new content. Thanks again from your hosts at Uncommon Sense. Hello and welcome to Uncommon Sense. I am Billy, and today in the studio we also have Mr. Butch.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Bob.
Yeah, we're going to bring you a special today. Something out of the normal stuff we bring you. We're actually going to bring you a little brief history on a holiday that's coming up right around the corner here.
We'll probably have some opinions in there, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
A little bit inside of what we think about the holiday and the history of it.
Oh, yeah.
It's an interesting history, for sure.
Yes, I think we should cover a little bit of the history to start it off.
Oh,
and that way there we should just segue right on into our opinions on it and how we feel about certain things. Like, do I like clowns? Heck yeah.
Only the wicked ones.
Only the wicked ones.
Only the wicked ones. Take you right on Tilt-A-Whirl. I think we should start with the complicated history, beginnings of Halloween.
Yes.
What it was long before
it was known as Halloween.
It was known as Halloween.
And how it got its name.
There is the Welsh name of it. I feel like Halloween came from their name, of the same one that the Irish call Samhain.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is now. And it's so similar. It's like Halloween or something. Like,
right.
It's that similar.
Wow.
That I really think that's where we got the word Halloween.
Right.
Which we also know
as All Hallows Eve.
Exactly. So yeah, let's get into what is Halloween, All Hallows Eve, and where did that idea come from?
Getting right into the story time of Halloween and its origins.
It's really hard to really pinpoint where Halloween started, how Halloween started, because what we know as Halloween today is derived from multiple traditions and cultures from around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Some will say it started with the Celts, some say it started in Germany, some say it started
long before
that. There's a documentary you can find on YouTube it's alright, although he doesn't know how to pronounce Beltane. That kind of bugged me. Not Beltane or whatever he said. Beltane. Anyways. But he brought up Constantine and how before Constantine really brought in the whole Christianity thing, which I've said to you before, I think in a lot of ways that he himself created Christianity or Catholicism, I guess, as we know it.
Right. Well, it would be Christianity because Catholicism didn't start until after Christianity, and there's a branch of Christianity. Yeah. That's why they use the same books, but in Catholicism, they use a couple extra books that you won't find in the King James Version.
But I also think that's kind of where the whole Roman Catholic term came from, was because of Constantine.
Right.
He was from Rome, he was Roman. But before that, him aside, we could talk about him some other time. I got my own theories about Constantine. But the bobbing for apples and things like that were traditions of that time of year. Everything back then was counted by the moon. We hear the natives say many, many moons.
Yes.
Every culture counted like that, though, back then.
That was their way of measurement.
So their lunar calendar, Halloween falls on October 31st in our modern day calendar.
Right.
Which is not lunar.
No.
By any means. In fact, it's very weird. It's very controversial to nature. That is why when you look at traditions around the world that are similar to Halloween, they all fall at the same time.
Right.
Because they followed the moon. So the Celts believed in another world. And the interpretations of that other world vary from story to story.
Correct.
You know, everybody kind of has their own interpretation of the folklore and the descriptions of the other world as described by the bards. There were monks, Irish monks I believe they were, at a certain point that wrote down a lot of what they thought were the traditions of the Druidic Celts. However, they wrote them hundreds of years after the Celts were driven out of Ireland and out of Wales and everything. Anyway, so they believed in another world. And during the time of Samhain, basically the line between our world and the other world became very thin. And the spirits were able to pass through to the different realm.
Right.
To our realm. So that's where we get things like the jack-o'-lantern and the costumes.
Right.
Because the masks that they would make, some believe that they were to ward off evil spirits or to blend in with the spirits. Some traditions lean more toward the idea of connecting with the ancestors, but it all ties in together because even the good come over, the bad are able to come over too. So we have to ward away the bad, meanwhile embracing the good spirits, right?
That, right.
Spirits being our ancestors and such like that. And they would actually make a separate spot on the table for Grandma.
Right.
So that she could be part of the feast.
Yep.
You know, food would be left out. They had certain traditions.
Yes.
There is talk, of course, of animal sacrifices and this and that. But I personally don't believe that any druid would sacrifice the way that, sorry to say, that the Christians have portrayed they would sacrifice.
Right.
They didn't take a perfectly good animal and walk him through the fire and burn him alive.
No.
Okay. They didn't needlessly kill an animal and leave it in the middle of the woods to rot.
No.
They were so in touch with nature that to do something like that would be completely blasphemous against their gods.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that their sacrifices were very ceremonial. They were to thank the gods for the gift of this animal. His death was ceremonious, and he was feasted upon.
Right.
And thank to the gods for this gift.
Right.
Because that much meat for a small village,
that would feed them.
That would feed them for the night, and then they could dry the rest of it. And
right.
I mean, can you imagine how much meat that is?
That's a
for
lot
a
of
small
meat.
village.
Yeah.
You know, and small village back then probably was like 10 people. Maybe.
Right.
You know, so that's where a lot of the traditions come from, though, is the belief that the spirits are able to cross over.
Right.
The jack-o'-lantern was there to ward away evil spirits from your home. Trick-or-treating kind of derives from some of their traditions.
Right.
You know, the costumes, obviously, and they would do kind of a similar thing, I guess, of trick or treat. I've heard of different, I guess, theories of how trick-or-treating was back then. But the trick part, there was actually a trick. It was kind of a risk to go ask somebody trick-or-treat when that whole thing first started, from what I've read. Because you were either going to be tricked, or they might give you a treat. And the treat might also be a trick.
Yes.
So...
Yes. Well, we did that while I was younger growing up. You know, a lot of times they would put in those little snap bubble gums.
Right.
Where you try to pull one out and it snaps your finger. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or like funny things like coins being baked into cookies and weird things like that.
Yeah, weird stuff. Yeah.
And then they ruined it in the 80s and had to start, some asshole decided, I'm going to put a razor blade in this. Then we started x-raying our candy. My mom used to take us up to the hospital and we'd trick-or-treat up there. And then they would x-ray your candy. I thought that was the coolest thing. You got to watch your candy bag go through there.
Yeah. See the squirrel moving around in the bag.
No. Well, that's when people stopped making, homemade treats to give out at Halloween. I remember going trick-or-treating in the early 90s and people would give out cupcakes and cookies and all kinds of cool stuff. And these little old ladies would make little loaves of bread and little cakes and stuff.
Popcorn balls.
And popcorn balls was, huge. It was like one of the number one things you looked forward to on Halloween was getting popcorn balls.
Yeah.
Quarters from the old man down the street.
And that's just not to tell people that he was your grandpa.
Nah, he wasn't my grandpa. That's funny though, because his nickname was Papa Jim or Grandpa Jim, something like that.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, he was cool though. And he was a diabetic, and so like he'd go get a bunch of treats and snacks and stuff. Right. And he'd only be able to eat one piece of that pie or one piece of that cake.
Right.
You know, he'd buy a whole bundle of bananas and could only eat a couple of them. And so he'd give us food all the time.
Oh, see,
he'd come
there you go.
tap on the window, ask my mom, "You guys want some cake and stuff? I got things over here. I can't eat it all." And he knew she had a house full of hungry kids.
So, yeah.
So, yeah. Anyways, back to Halloween.
That was the brighter side of Halloween when you was younger. You know, you've seen it from a different perspective. And from someone who was trick-or-treating before the whole razor blade incident. And then thereafter, I knew of the dangers that could come from it. So I always made sure anything the size a razor blade could fit into, I'd give that to my older brother.
You
love you.
Blade, not me.
You want some of my candy?
Trick or treat.
But back to Halloween, the trick or treating after that was the kids used to say in a more innocent way, trick or treat. If you don't give us a treat, we're gonna pull a trick on you, and that would be TPing their house or egging their car. Nothing too serious.
Oh, the hitting the mailbox with a baseball bat.
Yep.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, see, it was more innocent.
Yeah.
Would you rather...
Really, though, like, pranks aren't what they used to be.
No.
Like, a prank was just supposed to be something funny. It might be a little harsh.
Right.
You might have to clean up a mess, but it was funny.
Yeah.
You know? Like, putting saran wrap on a toilet seat.
That was you?
No, I never did that. Oh, or saran wrap on the bedroom right before your brother wakes up.
Oh, there you go.
That's good.
Yeah.
Wasted a lot of saran wrap. No, I'm just kidding.
It was worth it.
But in a sense, some of the traditions that we think of, like for April Fools, pulling silly little jokes on each other, that's more of what like trick-or-treating used to be.
Yeah.
You know? Or at least the way we know trick-or-treating used to be.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if, way back in the ancient times, if it was similar.
Yeah, it probably was.
And it was just for fun.
Right.
You know?
Well, it's also, it's that time of year, like you was discussing, that relatives of recently passed relatives would come back, and they would, reassure you that they were okay.
Yeah. And then you're okay.
Right.
You're okay without them.
Yeah. And down in Mexico, they have a similar tradition.
The Day of the Dead.
Right. Dias de Muerte.
Yes.
And,
and similar traditions for them as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of theirs down there, their traditions for a lot of things are a mix of culture. They have a little bit of Spain, and they have a little bit of Aztec or Mayan, kind of depending on where they are from down south.
Different regions.
But their native culture is now mixed with the Spanish culture.
Right.
Because the conquistadors really were assholes.
Yeah.
But, they embraced it in a way that we all need to embrace all cultures. Take the good, learn from the bad. Mm-hmm. We're all one people. Let's all be one world. Yeah. We have our different traditions. We do different things. And that's fine. But that's what makes us Earth, frankly.
Don't focus on the differences. Focus on the similarities.
And focus on the good. Like, even if it's so different you can't really totally understand it, if it's not bad, maybe we should learn from it.
Exactly. If you're not 100% sure what something is, educate yourself. Think about it. Go learn about it. Read up on it.
Honestly, nobody knows what's going on in this world, especially today. Just do what you think is good for yourself, for your family.
And for your community.
Maybe it might make an impact on the world. You don't know. But then I'm the type of person, I believe in karma. So when we do something good, our good energy goes out into the universe. I call it karma because that's the common term for it. It's got different terms. That's the old Chinese term, karma.
Right.
But that same philosophy has been found in many different parts of the world. Yeah. And the Druids believe similar things. Mm-hmm. And in case nobody's realized so far listening to our podcast, I'm very much into Druidic stuff. I've studied a lot of their traditions, right, their beliefs, and I would consider myself a bard long before I would consider myself a Christian anymore. Yes. Even though I grew up in a very strict Christian home. And frankly, the strictness of it is what made me shy away from it, research other religions, and take from each of them what works for me. Not because it works for me because that's how I think it should be. Right. But the good that I find in each one. Keep the good, learn from the bad, like I just said. So I believe that when we do something good, that good energy is reflected out into the universe, into the world. It goes on its path, it creates momentum, it collects more good, and by the time it has circled around back to you, just like everything else in this world does, our sun, our moon, our tides, our everything. Seasons, everything. Everything goes in a cycle. So when that good cycles back to you, it is at least tenfold than the good that you did. And that's what the Christians call a blessing. Yep. Same goes for the bad. When you do something bad, it multiplies. And by the time it gets back to you, you better hope you're not Hillary Clinton. I brought up bobbing for apples a minute ago. Right. An interesting thing about bobbing for apples. Now, I don't know what they believed in Rome when they started the bobbing for apples thing. But from what I have read and understand, that sort of party tradition, it traveled. Right. Like everything else does, it traveled. Right. And you had the Anglo-Saxons and the Germans and everything. And the Germans had very similar Celtic-style beliefs. In fact, a lot of people will clump Germans in with the Celts because their beliefs and traditions were very similar. Right. And the same goes for the Norse. Their beliefs were very similar. So why are all these ancient traditions are all so similar? Yeah. I'm just pointing that out. But the bobbing for apples thing was interesting because I know that in the Celtic traditions, the bobbing for apples, which I kind of think that they got that from the Germans who got it from the Romans. And then the Christianity thing started taking over and everything went kind of nuts. It's like that meme I have that says, in the beginning, man created God, and everything's been fucked up ever since. I'm like, facts, dude. Everybody just calm down and breathe. Anyways, when you bit into your apple, your energy went into the apple. And then you had two choices. You either eat the apple and regain your energy from the apple, which your energy has now been blessed with the fruit of the earth. Right. Okay. So then your other option is to take it to the fortune teller, and she will tell you your fortune. You may not like it. Most likely you won't like it. More than likely, yes. Or at least you won't like certain aspects of it. So, but you could take it to the fortune teller, and she would give you insight into your future or whatever according to your bite mark. As long as you didn't actually take that bite out, then your energy, according to their beliefs, was still in that apple. Right. So that's just kind of an interesting side note I wanted to throw in there. Yes. Well, that is a very interesting note. Right. A lot of people don't know that, and had no idea or no clue. We circle all the way back to 2021, and people are starting to come to understanding with what energy really is, and that we, as humans, we are made of energy, and everything on Earth transmits energy. Whether it's a plant, it's sand, a rock. Chinese call it qi. Qi, exactly. It's the same thing. They call it something different in different traditions, or different cultures or whatever, but it's the same thing. And modern Western world is finally coming to understand that the energy of the earth is within us. And I think that's one link that we might have to some of those, I'm going to say woke influenced, because they're not truly woke.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're
I
not
know
these
exactly what
crazies
you
that
mean.
are actually running around fully believing that there's a million different genders and that we have to focus on race to defeat racism. Not all of them fully believe in that, but they have been influenced by it.
Right. I still won't get the, to defeat racism, we're going to bring back segregation so that only whites are allowed in certain areas, where all other people of color are allowed to go into other areas.
Segregating us by color, again, they're segregating us by whether or not we mask or vax.
Right. Or our political beliefs.
Yep. So, back to this. What I was saying about energy.
Right.
There's a lot of these younger people, my generation and lower, most of them, that have been strongly influenced by a lot of this woke propaganda. I know a few of them very personally, and I often wonder, how can we reach those peers?
Right.
How can we show them that we are not...
We don't hate. We're a party.
We're not these, I don't know, radical right-wingers that they apparently all seem to think we are just because we voted for Trump. Or because we don't believe in the woke nonsense.
Right.
Or because we don't wear a mask.
There's a lot of reasons, to separate somebody from the herd. And, I remember growing up, the famous lines, united we stand, divided we fall.
Amen.
And that's what they're trying to do, is divide us. Mm-hmm. And they're dividing us, and everyone out there, this woke mentality, they're perpetuating this. And it's...
And yet some of them, I'm trying not to mention names, but a certain person that I know very well and is very dear to me has been very much influenced by a lot of this woke stuff.
Right.
And he and I have had many conversations about energy and the spirituality of the earth itself. Yeah. And a lot of our thoughts and beliefs go back to similar ancestry that we're talking about now with Halloween. We're talking a lot about Celts because a lot of our modern traditions do come from the Celtic world, which shouldn't surprise anybody.
It shouldn't surprise anyone. No.
A lot of us came from that part of the world when we migrated over here. And many of us, contrary to CRT, many of us came over here because we wanted that freedom of religion.
Right.
The liberty to believe how we want to believe.
Right. The freedom of speech, because a lot of these people that are coming from countries that's you can't even oppose or say anything out of line.
And when America started, this was a fresh, new frontier. No one knew anything about it.
Exactly.
And you had all of these pagans, a word I don't really like to use.
Yeah.
Because it's, to me, as someone who believes in those traditions, and those were my people, those are my ancestors.
Right, mine as well.
Yes. And that is the equivalent of using the N-word to someone of African descent.
Yes. You never go out and say, hey, what's up? And use the N-word.
Yeah.
So why use what's up and use the P word?
Although they use it, which I think they have been manipulated to use it through entertainment culture.
Right.
And so now they are degrading themselves while simultaneously putting down anyone that might use it.
Right.
In quoting them. Like, we can't even repeat what a black comedian said because of the word he used.
Right.
But I also think that it was manipulated before that to mean what it means now.
Right.
I mean, if we look at where they came from, I don't think it was originally necessarily a derogatory term. It was simply they came
from an area of Nigeria.
Yes. Anyways, that said, back to the pagan thing. I don't like that word. But a lot of our modern traditions of Halloween come from the quote-unquote pagan traditions. And many of us came over here with our pagan beliefs because Catholicism had become so dominant and controlling in that part of the world that we came from.
Right.
Whether we were Irish, Welsh, German, Spanish, Catholicism had become tyranny, which is why I personally am against religion altogether. To me, religion is a fancy word for cult.
Right. Well, don't get me wrong. I believe everyone has the right to the religion.
I do too.
You know, but
see, and I like to
I'm
say
not
people
going to
have
put
right
anyone
to their
down.
beliefs,
Right.
Because I personally don't believe that religion is what we perceive it as.
Right.
I think it was something created by man to divide us, or if not to divide us specifically, to control us. And what did we just say? Divided we fall.
Yeah.
You have to divide the people to control them.
Yeah.
And just in creating religion, you have divided people. Because now you have said that this way is the right way, and the old traditions are the wrong way. So give up everything that your ancestors have ever taught you, and take on this new tradition.
I seen something recently. It was about.
And then we'll take your traditions and twist them and
mold them into something
whatever we want
to be.
And use your gods as saints.
Right.
And whatnot.
No, I think I shared this picture with you. It was about a certain chief that stood up against the missionaries that were coming to his island, and they were getting ready to burn him at the stake because he would not bow down to Christianity. And by him not wanting to bow down, they kept saying, all you have to do is believe in heaven. We're still going to light you up, but all you got to do is believe in heaven. Do you believe in heaven? And he said, well, tell me, if this is your heaven, send me to hell.
No shit. And that's something I've never understood about the whole thing with the Knights Templar and the Holy Grail and all of that. So you're fighting a war because people don't believe what you want them to believe.
Right.
Because your God is all-knowing, but he loves.
Yeah. So
he's all-loving and all-knowing.
I'm going to come and kill your people.
But he wants you to kill all these people because they don't believe what you want them to believe.
Exactly.
Because you have just ramshacked their entire world and their centuries of tradition.
Right.
And told them that they have to give it up for the cross.
Yeah.
That sounds like a threat. I'm just saying.
Sounds like a little like coercion.
You're going to put me on a cross because I believe in Samhain instead of Christmas? Oh, because I celebrate Beltane instead of Easter, which is also, you took that name from my goddess, so fuck you. I'm just saying,
yeah.
From a pagan person's point of view, and from even the Protestants and stuff that came over to America, it had slightly different traditions, which almost were a little bit of a mix of pagan and what was Christian at the time. Well, can you imagine being one of those people, and just because you don't think exactly how someone else thinks, now you're being purged?
Right.
Doesn't that sound a little bit like the Holocaust?
Yeah. It's kind of sounding familiar, like something recently happened.
A little bit like the genocide that everybody goes on about.
Right.
And oh, that's right. And what's happening today with communism?
Right.
Or any other time in history with communism.
Exactly.
I mean, you look at the similarities of it. For me, I can't help but see religion as just another form of propaganda.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to try to bash anybody and their beliefs or anything like that. I still read the Bible, and I use the words from the Bible for wisdom in life.
And for direction on occasion.
And stuff like that. But I have my hard spots with it.
Right.
Because the Bible itself contradicts itself.
Yeah.
I know, because I've read it.
Yes.
And there's some of the stories in there where they just stop. Okay, like the Nephilim.
Mm-hmm.
Where did the rest of that story go?
Exactly.
They mention them for, it's what, 2, 3 verses or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That the Nephilim are mentioned. We don't know anything else about them. But they were supposedly the offspring of
angels.
The angels who came to mate with humans.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so what happened to them? They never explained whether or not they ridded them from the earth or what.
Right. Yeah.
There wasn't even much description except that they called them beasts or something like that.
Right.
But what does that mean? now that I've gotten way off subject about, I think this Halloween, everyone needs to just look inside yourself. What does Halloween mean to you? Is it just a fun thing you do with your family once a year? Or is there more than that to it?
Right.
Is it just candy and tricks? Or is there actually meaning to it?
Yep.
And maybe do some research. What did your ancestors do in similar fashion, similar time of year as we celebrate Halloween?
And we definitely like to hear your comments in the comment section below.
Because
tell us about it.
Yeah, because we're more reflecting what the traditions of our ancient ancestors would have been. Although neither one of us are Roman. But,
right.
The Germans and the Celts, those are our traditions. Those are the ones that we know, that we're familiar with, that tie in with our traditions of today. So let us know in the comments what your guys' ancestors might have celebrated for this time of year, what it meant to them. Did they believe in the spirits of the dead? Did they not?
Exactly. Let us know.
And a happy Samhain to everyone.
Yes. Be safe out there, have fun, and don't forget, it's supposed to be peaceful.
Damn it, Billy. Give me back my liquor.